Hello, and welcome back to Call Your Coven, practical support for nonsensical times. I'm Bee, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm your resident numerologist here at Call Your Coven. And I'm so excited to meet you today on my own and talk to you a little bit about numerology and where I come from, where my practice comes from, and kind of how you can use that information now in your own life. I'll give you some little tips and tricks to putting this to use right now today, as well as then just a base understanding of the practice and how you can expect to experience numerological information in the larger themes of Call Your Coven. And yes, I'm so excited about this. Just thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and for saying yes to this invitation and going on the ride with us. It's very exciting. I'm pinching myself still. So, as you might have known if you listened to our intro episode, I am Rebecca or Bee Scolnick. I identify as a writer, witch, and weirdo, as well as a queer human lady. And I currently live on unceded and occupied Tongva land, which is also known as Los Angeles or the City of Angels. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm happy to be here in the sunshine. And usually when I introduce myself in classes or class settings, I do make a little math joke. My book, The Witch's Book of Numbers, also starts with this, that I once got in a fight with my mom when I needed to go to tutoring to pass Algebra 2, and I screamed at her, unless it's Math the Musical, I'm never going to need to know this information. And so I do think it's a little bit of a cosmic joke that I now do math on a regular basis, that I am talking about numbers, but of course I had to marry that mathematical or scientific information with this mystical spiritual side of things, and that's when it all really kind of started to take flight. So that's, if you are listening to this and thinking, how am I going to connect with numerology or number magic when I absolutely despise math? My brain shuts down, I can't do it. I'm here to say, hi, me too. If I can do it, you can do it. And not only are most numerological calculations very simple, but also there's no shame in the calculator game. I use a calculator every day of my life with every client I've ever seen, in person, virtual. Everyone understands what is math, you know? Usually if we're in a spiritual space, maybe we're not so inclined to be thinking with the left side of our brain, and that's okay. We can do both. Now, recently, I've been introducing myself by saying that I have never known less or more than I know right now. And I think this is so freeing and something that I really want to bring to every space that I'm speaking or teaching in, including Call Your Coven, is that I really do feel like I'm at this point in my life and my writing and my career, especially with numerology, where I've got the basics down pat. And so I feel very confident sharing that with you today. And hopefully, if you read my book, you can go further into all of those knowings. And also at the same time, I feel incredibly confident that I know nothing, right? Especially with the world continuing to unfold in the chaotic way that it is unfolding. I hold a lot of space, all of the space for that which I do not know. And in fact, many of my favorite philosophers and mythological characters from the past, including Socrates, really made a point to say, I don't know. I don't know anything. And that is a great strength. And so I'm taking that with me into my future and our work here together at Call Your Coven. This real thirst for knowledge, this real thirst for learning and understanding, and knowing that we don't need to be daunted by that which we don't know. We will learn, and thank goodness for that. So you might also have heard about me in the intro episode that I do have a background in the Christian church. That is true. It was primarily by choice, which is wild. But I do think that that also freed me up to then leave by choice and to start exploring kind of all of these spiritual modalities that I love so much that have ultimately led me to assembling this amazing team to create Call Your Coven. But numerologically, I just want to acknowledge and thank a few of the numerologists that I've learned from personally. And then if you are interested in looking further into any of their works, I definitely encourage you to do so. And I just have one caveat that I'll share at the end. But first and foremost, I work in a Pythagorean numerology lineage, so gotta give it up to Pythagoras. I cheekily refer to him as Daddy Digits. We'll talk about him more in a minute. But also in more of a Pythagorean lineage is numerologist Christine Delory. She writes creative numerology. She also has, that's her website. She also has a book called The Life Cycles. I find her work to be deeply impactful, not only because of the ease and accessibility of the number magic that she is bringing to the general populace, but she also is very outspoken in terms of political situations, social situations. I really feel like she is bringing all of her magic and her wisdom into a very practical, modern, applicable space. And that is also what I hope to do with my own work. In a different lineage than mine, but might be really interesting for you to look into his work, is Remington Donovan, and also Novalee Wilder. And I'm not quite sure of all of Remington Donovan's roots, but I do know that the lineage that he is working in has a lot to do with gematria, which is Jewish mysticism and kind of the Hebrew-based system of number magic. Novalee Wilder is working in the Chaldean numerology space. Chaldean is the modern term for Babylonian numerology. So again, we have all of these kind of schools of thought, and I promise to link them all in a moment. And then my final recommendation is Sarah Yip, who is somebody who I've come across her work in various spaces and really appreciated it. So I think the numerology niche is still small. There aren't many of us kind of out and loud and speaking about just numerology, but I'm very grateful to be in a handful of people who are doing this work. And I'm very grateful to everything that I've learned from them and will continue to learn from them as we expand. So again, I just really want to root us in the why of this all before we talk about the who, what, where, when. Let's start with the why. The world is fucking rough right now, okay? Things are very chaotic externally, which means that for most of us who are breathing, blinking, thinking, being in the world, staying open-hearted and brave. That means that a lot of times when the external world is chaotic, our internal world is also going to feel chaotic, is also going to be a bit up in the air. But I think numerology really is a deep practice of reminding ourselves that we can always find peace on our own paths. But in order to do that, of course, we must ground back into ourselves. We must go back to basics a lot of the time. And so today we're going to talk about numerology as a practice, as well as the holy trinity of your chart and how to find that to give you a really solid starting place to find this peace on your path and this grounding in yourself and what is possible for you outside of a lot of these external, chaotic, crumbling, fortifying structures. So, what is numerology? Numerology is the study of the cosmic language of numbers. So I really do see the numbers as their own language. Just like you can speak in astrology, just like you can speak in tarot, you can also speak in numbers and number magic. So we learn the language, and then we intuitively apply that language, that knowing, that understanding to people, places, and events. So it's a tool, right? Numerology is a tool that can help us gain awareness of the many cycles that we're experiencing, as well as the patterns that we are playing out individually at any given moment. And this information can be used both personally, like looking at our own charts, or collectively, like looking at 2024, which is an 8 overall year. And that is something that we all are under the umbrella of in the collective space. So just as we have our own astrological natal charts, we also have our own set of personal numbers that can really guide us and provide insight into our life path, our patterns, our strength, our challenges, our invitations into growth. And number energies really are magic. So I find them to be mirrors, poetic archetypes, and really kind of unwavering truths. You'll find that in a lot of the systems of numerology, even though some of the theory and the practical application and the calculations might be different, a lot of that number information is deeply rooted in similar themes and keywords. But you do have to be careful out there, like I said. So numerology is a quote unquote ancient philosophy. Of course, when we talk about ancient, we really as human beings don't understand what that word means. But for us in modern times, we're looking to our Egyptians, our Greeks, far reaching. So numerology is this ancient philosophy with roots in both the Western and the Eastern worlds. The earliest writings do stem from Babylonian and Egyptian works in the West, and then India, Japan, and China in the East. And numerology is both a calculated practice and an art. So there are varying schools of thought, like I said, with Chaldean numerology, Chinese, Gematria, Pythagorean. So if you're out there on the Google looking around and you find different information, just know that there are these varying schools of thought. So it's really important to see what lineage you're practicing in. So my lineage is Pythagorean numerology, daddy digits. And Pythagoras is more of a composite character of thinkers at this point than a person, but there are histories of him out there. And most of the stories say that he was born in Greece, but then he studied in Egypt at the Kemetic mystery schools. And Kemet is just an ancient word for Egypt. But he went to this temple school, which took 40 years to complete a degree, and he dropped out after 22 years, as most of the Greek thinkers did. No one stayed the 40 years. But he returned to Greece and began linking his work with numbers to the alphabet, music, and then ultimately to that which he called God. So in this lineage, we can really use numerology to help know ourselves and to orient ourselves in time and space. We can use it to build meaningful personal practices that connect us to our bodies, our present moment, our communities, the world around us. And then, of course, when we use this information responsibly and consciously, number magic really can connect us to our inherent free will and help us to make choices along our path that are really good for us and that we want to make. So with our time left, let's talk about your Holy Trinity. These are 3 numbers at the core of your chart. They are the starting place, and they're going to give you the long game, the zoomed in game, and then kind of this interesting little trick for the middle. So first of all, your life path number. This is also known as your destiny number, your karmic path. It represents that long zoomed out perspective of your life. And it reveals energies and themes that you're here to experience and through which you'll evolve. And you find this number by adding the month, the day, and the year of your birth, your full birthday, and then reducing until you get a single digit. So for example, my birthday is 7/7/1992. If I string all those numbers along, I'm going to get to 35, and then 35 reduces 3 plus 5 is 8. So I'm on a life path of 8. So you can find that number, whole birthday reduced to a single digit. Then you can find your yearly cycle, which is the most zoomed in perspective, by adding the month and the day of your birth to the current year. So my birthday of 7/7 added to 2024 will ultimately get me to 22. Now, we're going to put a pin in repeating numbers for today, but just know that 22 reduces to 4. So I'm on a 4-year. And when you do the math on yearly cycles, you'll start to see that it really does time out 1 through 9, and then the math magically starts over again at 1. So you can start to pull out these 9-year chunks of life and see what chapter was unfolding, what story was playing out over the course of this 9-year cycle. And that'll give you insights to what the energy you're experiencing is right here, right now, today. And then the third number is your public persona. Some call this your gift. I think it's a bit like the costume that you wear during the play of your life. It's your most social and performative self. It's the you that meets other people out there in the world. And you can think of this as like facets of your personality that can aid you along the way. And you find this by adding just the month and the day of your birth and then reducing till you get a single digit. So in my case, 7 would equal 14. 1 plus 4 equals 5. So I have a public persona number of 5. Now, you then will connect these numbers to the archetypes. So just to give you a really quick overview of these archetypes so that you can connect the 3 numbers that you've already calculated to these archetypes. 1 is the trailblazer, 2 is the peacemaker, 3 is the communicator, 4 is the salt of the earth, 5 is the change maker, 6 is the nurturer, 7 is the seeker, 8 is the embodied, and 9 is the humanitarian. And again, we'll get into double-digit numbers on another day. So start to think about what archetypes you're working with in your Holy Trinity. For me, I'm on a life path of the embodied. I have a public persona of the change maker, and currently I'm in a salt of the earth year. And then you can start working with those energies and seeing how they all blend together, how they create tension, how they support one another, all that good stuff. And I think that's a really good starting place to start to really understand how we can work with number magic in ourselves, in our lives, and much, much more. So that in a nutshell is Numerology 101. I did my best to keep it brief. We'll go into it further, but please feel free to not only like and subscribe to all of our channels, but also to leave me a comment with any questions that you might have, because I'm going to be doing these shorts monthly and I really want to cater to you. So what is it that you want to know? What are your burning questions? What's never made sense to you about numerology? And what do you feel is holding you back from deepening your own practice? And don't say math, because we can use a calculator. But please let me know and then connect with me. I'm on Instagram and TikTok and Threads at Bee Scolnick. You can find me online at www.rebeccaskolnick.com. I'm available for readings, and I'm so happy to be here with you, jamming on all things magical and mundane. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.